Welcome back. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop here with America's Talking Network. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell as we broadcast from Chicago during the Democratic National Convention, and a lot to tackle. Of course, we've been here all week and watching what happens at the Illinois Democrats' breakfasts and the speeches that are made, but also reviewing some of the things happening around the convention. Yesterday was the day that Governor J.B. Pritzker delivered his address to conventioners in Chicago. We also had some Illinois Republicans looking to get into the State House outside the convention grounds, having some of their voices heard. So we'll touch on those things here with Illinois in Focus Daily, right here with America's Talking Network. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So let's get into it with the breakfast that Democrats are having each and every weekday morning here. Of course, the convention runs until Thursday, and we'll bring you those reports each and every weekday morning. And be sure to go to thecentersquare.com where you can get updated on the very latest. But the breakfast in the morning, having different types of focus. You've got Senate President Don Harmon, who was one of the key speakers yesterday. And after they had their conversations with the various Illinois Democrat officials in the room for the breakfast, they took questions from the media. Now, one thing we saw Monday night at the convention on the floor when President Joe Biden gave his address was a lot of people holding up signs saying, "We love Joe, we love Joe," and they were chanting that. But I was a little confused, and I had to ask the Senate President, Don Harmon, here in Illinois, if that's the case, if everybody was seemingly on a consensus that they love Joe Biden, why is he not the delegate for, or not the delegate, but the official party nominee for Democrats? And here's Senate President Don Harmon responding to that question.
President Biden did a brave, courageous, and patriotic thing and passed the torch to a new generation. And we're here to support the new ticket, and we're grateful for his service and for his sacrifice.
Now, what's interesting is what we have as the process falling out here is Joe Biden was running, despite people questioning his debate performance and his mental capacity and his physical capacity. He was adamant that he was running for president and he was going to beat Donald Trump. We heard that for weeks after the debate. But then after the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee last month, President Biden made the decision to drop out of the race. He's remaining president, but he dropped out of the race. What happened there? Still a lot of intrigue as to how that decision was made. But you had people on the ground in Chicago at the convention saying they love Joe. Why isn't he the nominee? Again, Senate President Harmon saying that he made a sacrifice, right? And we heard others earlier in the week comparing Biden to George Washington, saying that, he's handing the mantle over to the next generation. But what happened was, procedurally, it's a slating issue because also yesterday on the convention floor, you had the delegates from all across the country officially give their votes to Kamala Harris, not Joe Biden. So it was a bit of a switch, right? A flip. Some people could call that slating. What's slating? Slating is when you have somebody who gets on a ballot despite not running in the primary, and that seems to be exactly what happened with Kamala Harris. Here in Illinois, though, the Democrat-controlled legislature, they prohibit slating. They passed a law this election cycle within the span of 2 or 3 days, and the governor signed it, that spelled out if somebody didn't run in the primary, they can't be put on the ballots by their party. And this is just for state house races, but a Republican running for the state house up here in Chicago, Leslie Collazo, I connected with her outside of the convention. They were talking about school choice and wanting to get the Illinois Invest in Kids school scholarship program reinstated. But Collazo shared with me a little bit of what she sees as hypocrisy, and as far as they won't let Republicans slate candidates in Illinois state house races, but everybody seems to be fine with Democrats essentially slating Harris.
Is that I was a slated candidate, similar to Kamala Harris. And I don't understand why it was such a problem for me to try to get on the ballot, but then they go ahead and try to just shove this candidate in our face for president in 2024.
So a lot of interesting thoughts there as far as the slating of candidates and whether or not what we had with Harris is similar to what Republicans are doing in some races across the state of Illinois, and even some Democrats have done it in the past. But regardless, just an interesting kind of split screen, so to speak. Then you had other Q&A at yesterday's Democrat breakfast, in particular, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, talking about why the focus so much has been on the issue of reproductive
I don't
rights,
see this as
the issue of abortion. That seemed to be a theme a lot throughout the convention so far. But the question was, why exactly is that the focus?
No, focus on reproductive rights is the economy. For women to be able to work, for women to be able to take care of our children, for us to be able to put food on the table, reproductive rights and the ability to decide what's best for our bodies is an economic issue.
But I had to ask, about those economic issues. I mean, does that take away from the ability for people to afford groceries, to afford energy, to be able to fill up at the gas tank? What are the economic corrections that are going to be taken, or that have been taken under the Biden-Harris administration? Here's the Lieutenant Governor.
Vice President Kamala Harris has already put forth an economic plan, and of course we'll hear more about that during this week. But look at what she's done. She's talked about wanting to address those everyday kitchen table issues about how to lower prices at the grocery store, how to make sure that we can expand the middle class, how to make sure we uplift all families. On the other side of the aisle, we have people who want to take us backwards, who are only focused on doing what's best for themselves. There are two very different visions for our country. One includes working for the people, and one is about Donald Trump working for himself. They're just not the same.
More questions and answers from the various Democratic officials here in Illinois, including anticipating Governor J.B. Pritzker taking the main stage during prime time of the DNC, and Stratton, who's the lieutenant governor, somewhat previewing a bit of what the governor was expected to talk about.
Well, I'm always looking forward to hearing Governor Pritzker speak, and I'm just so proud of him to have the national stage to talk about all that Illinois has accomplished, and that can really be a model for what we want to see happen in the nation. He's going to give a great speech, and he's going to motivate voters not just from Illinois, but all across the country.
What about a third term?
I'm always supportive of a third term. He's a great governor. Why wouldn't I be?
What about any political ambitions that the lieutenant governor has? She was asked that as well yesterday.
I don't think any of us can focus on what we want to do until we make sure that we elect Kamala Harris as our next president and Governor Walz as our vice president. I think right now I'm just so thrilled to be honored to serve alongside Governor Pritzker. We make a great team, if I can say so myself.
So the speech last night, we'll review that in another segment and hear a bit of another Illinois Democrat talking about the governor not getting picked to be the vice presidential candidate, but still being governor. But Juliana Stratton reiterated something that we've heard Democrats talk about before. Even Senate President Don Harmon had talked about this, how he says there was a real hatred that brewed up in 2008 with the election of Barack Obama. And they saw it even more, they said, in 2012. Well, they say that they see that hatred here as well with the nomination of Kamala Harris to be the presidential candidate.
Well, what I would say is that with the election of our first black president, and in 2016, when we touched that glass ceiling, that ultimate glass ceiling, that the Republicans' response right then and there was to start stripping away everything, all of our rights that got us there. And so here we are on the precipice of being able to elect the first black woman, first South Asian woman, first woman president, and they're not going to be happy. But I really see Democrats coming together both as an act of defiance and an act of resilience to say, this is the direction that our country is going. We're not going backward. And we are coming together strong to make sure that we can keep going in the direction that we are meant to be. When I look at the Democrats gathering today, this is America. And this is what we will continue to protect.
So the thought there being that there's hatred, alluding to what some may say is misogynism or racism, but can there not be a difference in policy that makes somebody not want to vote for Democrats, that makes somebody not want to vote for Republicans? I mean, we've heard a lot about the reproductive rights issues and the tax breaks for the wealthy. But, we seem to, the kind of reflection back into 2016, the basket of deplorables comment, right? Are they trying to characterize half of the voting population as, quote, full of hatred? Frederick Walz, a Republican running for the State House district here in Illinois in the Chicagoland area, he was also outside of the security perimeter yesterday, and I was able to connect with him yesterday afternoon, and he shared some of his thoughts about how Donald Trump in particular is being mischaracterized considerably by those who oppose him.
You have some older people that, that may say, well, he's racist, and I say, well, just prove it, and then they can't prove it. So then I educate them on Donald Trump. I said, well, do you personally know him, and what has he personally done to you? And they can't say anything. I said, so all you know about him is what the media have showed you. So then I showed them media clips of like when Jesse Jackson was running for president, he helped Jesse Jackson out. You know what I'm saying? He was never what the media is portraying him to be. And so, they have their different opinions, but you just have to educate them. And then I educate them on just being a conservative, a Republican. The Republican Party was founded to abolish slavery. Everything about the Republican Party was helping black people. In fact, Lyndon Johnson takes credit for the Civil Rights Act, but the Republican Party was in Congress. They had a two-thirds vote to push through a Democrat Senate filibuster. So it was actually the Republicans were always looking out for the black community, but a lot of people are just not educated. The only reason that black people really vote for the Democrats is because when Kennedy was in jail, someone in his family called King's wife, and when they got him out of jail, that was the Mickey in the drink. That was the Kool-Aid.
So interesting to hear some of the other perspectives on the ground outside of the convention as we are in now day 3. They're doing their thing until Thursday. We're heading back out there, getting another starts to the day, hitting up the Democrat breakfast, and then heading out to the convention for some more interviews. So obviously we'll bring you all the latest with America's Talking Network each and every weekday morning. Illinois in Focus Daily. Be sure to go over to thecentersquare.com and get all of the reports that you need. And don't forget as well to check out all of the various clips and interviews that are available at americastalkingnetwork.com. All right, much more coming up. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell each and every weekday morning here with America's Talking Network. While conventioners last night were hearing speeches from delegates, you had a whole host of protesters out on the street clashing with police. And if you are online, you obviously are able to find all of the video that there is. I think one in particular that has done an incredible job, Tenet Media. They've been doing live streams of the protests, and you can see all of the some would characterize as chaos. Flags being burned, protesters being arrested, clashing with police. So you can clearly see all of that. But here with America's Talking Network and Illinois in Focus Daily, we're taking a look at what was talked about on the convention hall. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air, and we can connect that way. But here on the ground in Chicago with Illinois in Focus Daily, Governor J.B. Pritzker delivered his speech last night on the convention floor. And the governor is in his second term as Illinois governor. He just a few weeks ago was considered as one of the names being considered for Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. Obviously, that did not happen. Instead, Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz. But Governor Pritzker, being somebody who's a billionaire and funds Democrats in Illinois and beyond, has his own political action committee, Think Big, helping prop up candidates in other states. There was several interesting things that happened yesterday on the convention floor, including Bernie Sanders getting up, Vermont senator, and he said that billionaires shouldn't be able to buy primaries. And then just a few speeches later, it was Governor J.B. Pritzker who is himself a billionaire. But the governor did take time to talk about Illinois' history in having presidents come from Illinois, but also having, a big role in selecting who's the president. One thing that you hear a lot about is, the land of Lincoln, Illinois, having, be the place where Abraham Lincoln last lived before he became president. Chicago also was the place where Republicans nominated Lincoln to be their candidate in 1860. But Pritzker gave a little bit more history on what he said was Illinois' presidential pedigree.
Now, Illinois' presidential pedigree is unmatched. And given that Vice President Kamala Harris spent some of her early life right here, I speak for the entire Illinois delegation when I say we claim her too. Now, one president we will never claim is the con artist the Republicans nominated in Milwaukee last month. Donald Trump once called Chicago embarrassing. To quote a great Chicagoan who won 6 world championships on these very grounds, we take that personally.
Pritzker then went on to say that Trump says he's a billionaire, but take it from a billionaire. He points to himself, and then he made some other quip. But Pritzker also discussed, all the things that he says Trump screwed up, including, he says, COVID-19 and managing that crisis.
During COVID, we supported small businesses and jobs. And Donald told us to inject bleach.
I think you could probably find a fair share of small businesses in Illinois that say that they were not supported by the state after being told to essentially close down for weeks and months, and then to limit capacity to 25% and then limit capacity to 50%. And that was, kind of moved around quite a bit. And then you had people being told they couldn't have more than 3 or 4 people on a boat at a time. And all of these edicts coming from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker with executive orders that went on for more than 2 years, and the masking of kids in schools and the requirements of vaccines for certain state employees and the encouragement of the private sector to have vaccine passports and the like. So regardless, I digress a bit. Interesting to hear that brought up on the stage. And we've heard this line before several times, especially even the vice presidential nominee, Tim Walz, saying that, the schools were reopened by President Biden. Well, again, Trump didn't close schools. It was the governors who were closing schools, like Governor J.B. Pritzker did. But regardless, more from last night's speech with Governor Pritzker. He said that Democrats, they want to see a healthy economy. They want to see businesses thrive and grow. And he said that there's just a difference in philosophy between Democrats and Republicans.
But the anti-freedom, anti-family policies of MAGA Republicans are driving workers away. Here's the thing. Americans don't want to be forced to drive 100 miles to deliver a baby because a draconian abortion law shut down the maternity ward. Americans want the hope of giving birth through IVF, not the fear that it might be taken away. Americans with LGBTQ kids don't want them facing discrimination at school because the state sanctioned it.
Leslie Colasso, a Republican running for a district up here in Chicago for the Illinois State House. I connected with her outside of the convention halls, and they were talking about education. She and other Republicans running for Chicago area districts. And she said that, listen, parents don't want their kids to be indoctrinated.
Some parents don't want that, and they should be able to still allow their kids to attend schools and have an option to do that may not be so focused on those things. If you want your child indoctrinated, then fine, put them where you want. The beauty of this is that we all live in a free country, but some kids don't have certain options, and I don't think that's fair. So I think we have to fight on their behalf.
And that school choice, we'll obviously hear a lot more about that in the next 80 days, fewer days than that, before the November 5th election. But, getting kind of both sides of the argument here on schools, what's taught there. Some people say it's about equity. Other people say it's about indoctrination. And should there be school choice? Clearly a defining factor that kind of separates the two parties. But the governor also talked about open carry and how some states that allow that make people feel unsafe.
Americans want to go to their neighborhood grocery store and not have to worry about some random guy open carrying an AR-15.
Now, I know that some states have open carry or what's considered constitutional carry, and it doesn't turn into the wild, wild west out there. In states where, in particular jurisdictions where there's heavy amounts of gun control, like Chicago, you have an increased number of shootings that happen. And you can look at the headlines every weekend here in Chicago and see that play out. But earlier the governor talked about what businesses need. They need workers. In Illinois, you have, continued out-migration, businesses moving out of the state. A lot of businesses announcing layoffs. If you look at the Warren reports each and every month, you can see that. But the governor also, he talked about how Democrats do want a strong economy.
Democrats are for lower taxes and higher wages, less inflation and more business growth. We just think it's wrong to craft those policies for Elon Musk and not for everyday working people.
And the governor getting those applause at the convention yesterday, but he said the choice is clear between these two candidates, either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump.
We have a choice, America, between the man who left our country a total mess and the woman who has spent 4 years cleaning it up.
Now, you can go and obviously watch the governor's entire speech. And before the speech, I connected with Rockford Democratic State Representative Maurice West. And we talked, and you can see this entire interview at America's Talking Network on YouTube. But we talked about, how he found out that Biden wasn't running, the thinking of the days there before it was official that Kamala Harris was going to be the candidate. And now here we were in the convention hall to see the official nomination of Harris. But I asked West about the governor and how he was thought to possibly be a pick for Harris's VP, but that didn't happen. Here's some of West's thoughts. And again, you can see this entire interview at America's Talking Network on YouTube.
We have a choice.
And here we go.
I would say even though he wasn't picked, it should be an honor of his lifetime to be considered. And it also shows that he's doing the work here in the state. And he's doing good work that resonates with what Kamala Harris wanted. When I saw who she picked, Governor Tim Walz, and I started hearing about him, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great pick. We need someone who could bring the tone down. And can make it feel more familiar, make it feel like that's someone I can resonate with. He's nothing wrong with it, but I'm accustomed to seeing people from Ivy League education or a lawyer and whatnot. But this guy's a dad and a coach, and that shares with a lot of people. I can have these jobs of serving young people and still resonate into different arenas. So I'm really excited what's that going to look like. But going back to Governor Pritzker, yeah, he's just fine. If he so desires, depending on what everything goes down, yeah, he can run for federal office if he so desires. But for now, I'm
He says he's glad that Pritzker's still the governor of Illinois. Again, you can see that entire interview with Maurice West at America's Talking Network on YouTube or at thecentersquare.com. But before the governor even took to the stage, the Illinois Republican Party shared this statement from their chairperson, Kathy Salvi. She said that Pritzker has failed Illinois as governor and allowed the states to be overrun by, quote, illegal border crossers, out-of-control crime, and billions in new taxes. As a result, Salvi said, Illinois is in slow decay, with residents and businesses leaving a high tax burden. Quote, businesses are taking flights, leaving, and Illinois citizens and taxpayers are left paying the check. As Pritzker soft launches his campaign for president, Illinois families are hurting, and Pritzker doesn't care, Salvi said. Our state is just another stepping stone for him to advance his ambition, while we are saddled with the heavy effect of his administration's failed policies. One thing's clear from Pritzker's primetime speech slot: the only way our state will have actual representation is by voting Republican in November. So that's just some of the back and forth here on the ground at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. I'm Greg Bishop, and be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with us each and every weekday morning as I'm on the road here. All right, it's like got, duct tape and bubble gum piecing this all together. So I really do appreciate you guys tuning in and sharing this and liking and subscribing and following. All right, so obviously each and every weekday morning we'll be here. We'll be back at it tomorrow with Illinois in Focus Daily with America's Talking Network and the Center Square.